Thank you, Kerry. Australian Rare Earths. We're working towards establishing an independent, sustainable supply of critical rare earths for use in decarbonisation efforts through the development of our Copper clay-hosted heavy rare earth project. This one here, sorry. The usual disclaimer there. So demand growth for EVs and wind turbines require 4 key rare earth elements. The Western world is seeking an independent supply chain outside of China. However, deposits containing all 4 rare earths are rare. Copper has all 4 key rare earths, including, importantly, the heavy rare earths, dysprosium and terbium. It's those 2 rare earth elements, the heavy rare earths, that are critical to rare earth permanent magnets operating at high temperatures in applications such as electric vehicles and wind turbines. Copper has a substantial JORC resource already defined, 81 million tonnes at 785 ppm TREO. That resource is open in all directions and has an adjoining up to 200 million tonne exploration target attached to it. It's a clay-hosted deposit, the same style that underpins China's massive rare earth industry. And illustrating that fact is that China's clay-hosted resources only account for about 1% of their total rare earth resources, and yet they satisfy 35% of their production. So those clay-hosted style deposits are important. We have immense growth potential at Copper, and the defined resource is only less than 5% of the total acreage. We have region-wide drilling at Copper to show similar potential grades and thicknesses up to 40 kilometres away from our resource, and essentially everywhere we've drilled in between. Our resource expansion and development drilling is underway. We have an MOU with Neo Performance Materials for a joint development and offtake agreement. Neo are one of the very few companies outside of China who are taking rare earth products downstream. They have a wealth of experience in the industry, and we will be able to tap that experience to rapidly progress Copper. Stakeholder engagement and baseline studies for a mine lease application are underway, and we have a development pathway targeting production for 2025-2026. We're an Australian company, not just in name only. Our board includes as its chair Professor Dudley Kingsnorth, who is an internationally recognised rare earth expert. Pauline Carr, who is Chancellor of the University of South Australia and Chair of National Pharmacies, along with myself and Bryn Jones, co-founders of the company. So a little on the rare earth supply chain before I come to our project. It's a familiar story for a number of historical reasons. It's entirely dominated by China. The rare earth supply chain has a number of elements to it, but it is those 4 rare earths applied in the manufacture of rare earth permanent magnets that are the most economically important. They are neodymium, praseodymium, dysprosium and terbium. Minerals containing the first of those 2, neodymium and praseodymium, light rare earths, are mined from multiple global sources. However, dysprosium and terbium are almost entirely sourced from clay-hosted resources in China and Myanmar. Dysprosium and terbium are considered highly critical by the US, Japanese and European governments for their unique properties in retaining magnetic strength in high-temperature applications for rare earth permanent magnets in EVs and wind turbines. A clay-hosted resource in Australia containing dysprosium and terbium is of global significance. It's not just the raw materials supply chain that is dominated by China, it's the downstream supply chain of rare earths and their products also, and even to a worse degree. China currently produces 94% of rare earth permanent magnets. So it's no surprise then, with demand driven by applications in the electrification and decarbonisation of future industries, that we see supply deficits emerging across those elements, and in particular the heavy rare earths. Atomus Intelligence projects demand for dysprosium will be double the foreseeable supply by 2032, and for terbium that will occur even sooner. AR3 and the Copper project is well placed to provide near-term supply to this market for all 4 magnet rare earths, and this importantly includes the heavy rare earths, dysprosium and terbium. We expect to be amongst the next group of Western world rare earth producers. So to Copper, our cornerstone asset, is a highly valuable potential source of critical rare earths in a Tier 1 location. We're 100% owned, clay-hosted rare earth deposit located some 300 kilometres southeast of Adelaide. Our recent mineral resource upgrade has confirmed Copper as a globally significant resource. The mineralisation is consistent, shallow, and does facilitate rapid, low-cost exploration and potentially mining. Metallurgical test work has confirmed the presence of recoverable, and I emphasise recoverable, light and highly sought-after heavy rare earth elements. We've been actively engaging with the local community, knowing that their support is key to building a successful business. We've established, as I said, an MOU with Neo Performance Materials for a joint development and offtake agreement, and that'll allow us to rapidly progress this project. Our aim is to become a global supplier of added value rare earth products, working together with government, academia, community and landowners. So why is a clay-hosted deposit so important? Well, I've touched on the importance of the heavy rare earths they contain, but clay-hosted deposits also have a range of other important benefits when it comes to developing a supply of critical rare earths. They require only a simple metallurgical recovery process, operating at ambient temperatures and pressures to produce from, and they produce no radioactive waste streams. This means that the upfront capital expenditure required to bring them into production is dramatically less than that required for a hard rock deposit. And it also means that they're entirely scalable. The resource at Copper is shallow, free digging, and with a low strip ratio. The proposed mining method will allow for progressive rehabilitation. Our resource at Copper contains consistent magnet rare earth contents of around 25%. That is, the 4 key magnet rare earths make up about 25% of the total rare earth contained. More than 55% of the defined resource is in the indicated JORC classification, and that indicated portion has a higher average grade than the inferred resource. The resource has huge potential for growth, with a 90 to 200 million tonne exploration target attached to it. This image here illustrates the exploration target in blue attached to our indicated and inferred resources. And again, we've done drilling as far as 40 kilometres away in this region to demonstrate that clay-hosted rare earth contents, thicknesses and grades exist that far away and essentially everywhere in between. The entire region appears endowed with rare earth mineralisation hosted in clays, and we have in our 4,000 square kilometre tenure almost all the prospective ground for this style of mineralisation. We describe the region as having the potential to host a multi-generational location for the production of rare earths. Our resource expansion and definition drilling is underway, and despite a very wet spring, has been since the middle of September. Assays are returning now and showing, as we expected, significant intersections of clay-hosted rare earths extending from the existing resource and showing consistent magnet rare earth content. And that map's indicating they're blue and green, the drilling we've completed since the middle of September. That drilling is continuing and will continue to the end of Christmas to support an updated mineral resource estimate scheduled for the first quarter of next year. So the metallurgy. Importantly, we've demonstrated now that the recovery characteristics essential for a clay-hosted deposit. That is, by simple washing of the clay in a low pH solution, we were able to bring rare earths into solution. The 10 samples shown here in the chart are representative of the broader mineral resource and show a consistent recovery profile for those light and heavy rare earths, using simple leach at ambient temperatures, pressures, and at a range of average grades. We've also been working on refining that process to minimise the use of reagents. We currently have an 800 kilogram bulk sample with ANSTO to scale up this process. And we intend to produce a rare earth carbonate product from that process for product characteristics, but also samples to provide for potential off-takers for their assessment. We've established a world-class metallurgical team, and we're well and truly leading the pack with respect to a development of this kind in Australia. That 800 kilogram sample that's at ANSTO currently being processed came from a trial pit that we conducted, where we uncovered 3,500 tonnes of mineralised clay from the pit you can see there. The base of the pit was at a depth of essentially 6 metres. The clay mineralised with rare earths across this region are very shallow. We took 500 tonnes of that 3,500 tonnes to set aside for scaling up our process work into a pilot plant. The test pit also allowed us to establish a type of mining equipment which would be required to develop this project, and importantly, how the pit could be rehabilitated and the land returned to its former use, in this case, grazing sheep. So there's a great illustration there. You can barely make out the former pit, but the outline's just visible under all that green grass. Our vision is to be harvesting the rare earths from the shallow clays in this region and quickly returning the land to its former use. By becoming part of the community and engaging with them as often as possible about our activities and plans, we're establishing broad acceptance of our project in the region. We've established an office and warehouse in Naracoorte managed by local personnel. So it's been a rapid timeframe to have achieved all we have to date, and we plan to continue at that pace to potentially bring Coppermurra into production by 2025, 2026. The initial exploration tenure was granted in September 2020. We quickly established a maiden mineral resource and took that to an IPO in July 2021. A lot of drilling's occurred since then. We're up to in excess of 30,000 metres now, and that drilling will continue to expand the resource. And we've demonstrated the metallurgy, so important to have shown that rare earths can be produced easily, simply and easily from these clay hosts. Our next steps. We'll continue the drilling, as I said, and continue to easily expand the resource. We're completing the baseline studies to make an application for a mine lease in March or April next year. We're finalising the processing tests and flow sheet development. And we're advancing the preliminary mine planning and project studies to advance this project. So we have a great opportunity in this space, driven by global decarbonisation efforts. Critical rare earths, NdPr, Dy and Tb, are essential ingredients in permanent magnets for EVs and wind turbines. Strong demand growth supported by the need for an independent supply chain is supporting this project. At Coppermurra, we have endowment of all 4 high-value rare earth elements. We have a large resource with exceptional potential for growth, a Tier 1 location with strong community and landowner support, and project support through an MOU with Neo Performance Materials. The path to production includes low capex stage development to reduce the project risk. Studies are underway in parallel with the resource definition drilling. Government and stakeholder engagement have been established. Downstream offtake discussions have begun. and we're targeting first production in 2025-2026. That's Australian rare earths. Thank you.